Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true and open debate they've been looking for. A call for two sitting ministers to resign. Unemployment is up. Meanwhile, 2,500 jobs promised for Grand Bahama. And crime numbers fall. It's a roller coaster ride of bad and good news for the government these past few weeks. So how do you know which way the scales are tipping? Depends on who you ask, really. This forum has always lent itself to spirited debates based on facts and expert opinions, and tonight we attempt to probe the parties on the issues. I've chosen to borrow a title from a short-lived infomercial TV series done by the former PLP chairman Dud Maynard. Our topic, we thought you'd like to know. The parties speak. It's all on the record tonight. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break.
On the Record is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
I'm Dr. Nigel Lewis. I'm the proprietor of Universal Dental. Well, I prefer the consistency that Alive brings to the table. I like the fact that you get a call, I get a call, whenever something seems to be going haywire. And when that starts to happen, I know that I'm going to get a phone call to say, hey, listen, we know that something is happening. It's going to be done in an hour. An hour later, we're up and running. Everybody knows that when the time comes, you need to have your friends be able to make contact with you. And I like the little jingle that comes on when they put you on hold. I know it sounds inconsequential, but you know, it's some of these little things that really would make a difference.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Welcome to On the Record. Any government in power constantly finds itself in a delicate balancing act between what it must do in the interest of the country and what might be unpopular. The opposition must also be conscious not to overplay its hand in some situations. Well, tonight we get all sides of the debate on some of the more pressing issues you think might be of interest or things you're interested in hearing about. My disclaimer, tonight's topic was borrowed from a popular TV infomercial series in the 1980s. We thought you'd like to know. Brought about by the then PLP chairman Dud Maynard. The parties speak is what we are attempting to do tonight. My guests are the Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honourable Dionisio de Aguilar, also the National Vice Chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party, Obi Roberts, and the candidate for the Deputy Leader's position of the Democratic National Alliance, Mr. Bushami Ambrister. Gentlemen, welcome to On the Record.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Jerome.
Good morning. I was trying to find something that would encapsulate what I wanted to talk about, and you know, Obi, I tell you that Mr. Maynard is probably smiling tonight that I remembered his show. You may not remember that, Mr. Diaghilev. You may remember that. We thought you'd like to know.
Yeah.
So we think the public would like to know a lot about what's happening in our country today. And in trying to find a topic for this week's show, I thought there's so much going on. I can't just limit it to one topic. So I brought you gentlemen on to talk about a myriad of things, and we think it's a good time to do that. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening within the halls of Parliament. Last week, PLP members of the House of Assembly and Senate walked out of both chambers claiming government was abusing its power. This stems from the decision of the magistrate to throw out bribery charges against PLP Senator Frank Smith. Prosecutors intend to appeal this decision, we understand. But in the aftermath, there have been calls for the resignation of Ministers Dwayne Sands and Marvin Daines for their roles in this matter. Minister Diaghilev, I will start with you. There have been calls coming from all quarters for their resignations. I think Minister Sands yesterday in Grand Bahama spoke and said, you know, the devil is a lie and nothing shall happen. Some people, quite a few people, opposition included, say they should resign. Some say they should be fired.
Well, the position of the government and the position of those ministers is they should not be fired. First and foremost, I think that they're doing an excellent job. The Minister of National Security, Marvin Daines, has done a commendable job in reducing crime in the Bahamas. You look at his stats, and it's there. Numbers speak for themselves. The Minister of Health, Dwayne Sands, eminently qualified to hold his position, doing an excellent job. Right-sizing the healthcare industry, bringing out new beds, mobilizing additional departments at the Princess Margaret Hospital. You know, there's no doubt that both of those ministers are doing a great job. As it relates to the legal conundrum that we're at, you know, that the magistrate has obviously opined on the issue. We completely disagree. The Director of Public Prosecution, not the Attorney General, has agreed or has decided to appeal the case. It's a matter before the courts. Let it work its way through the courts and then see where the chips fall. But right now...
But the question is not whether they're doing a good job. It's what role did they play in this and the appearance. And I always say it's the optics of it that I think that has a lot of people uncomfortable.
I think that both of the ministers have spoken to this matter. They completely disagree. And, you know, the matter is going to be appealed. The Director of Public Prosecutions has said that they're going to appeal it. They obviously disagreed with the conclusion of the magistrate. And as I say, it's a matter before the courts. Let it play out. And when the entire legal process is played out, then we can see where we stand.
Obi Roberts, the PLP feels that this and other actions the government is taking is so egregious that they decided to walk out.
Yes, Jerome, what we have noticed that from the Free National Movement's position, when we were the government and when they saw certain things that they assumed that was wrongdoing, they demanded resignations of individuals. Particularly, I'll give one example, of former Minister of Local Government, Mr. Alfred Gray, when his involvement with the matter in his constituency, and they demanded his resignation. Mr. Gray voluntarily resigned and encouraged an investigation into the matter so his name could be cleared and could be vindicated. Every single time he got up in the House Assembly to speak, the members opposite of the Free National Movement, when they were in opposition, they denied him the opportunity to speak. They banged on the table vigorously, denying him the opportunity. So it's interesting to see if Dr. Minnis, Prime Minister Dr. Minnis, is going to take the page out of what was considered two members of his cabinet who, in court, under oath, indicated their involvement in the Frank Smith's case. One awarding a contract triple the size of the original contract at the time, and as well as Minister of National Security Marvin Daines in his direct communication with the virtual complainant at that time. They both were condemned by the magistrate in terms of their involvement in it.
Bushami and Bristol, what is good for the goose should be good for the gander?
Well, first of all, like the minister said, I assume he's trying to imply that because they have a good track record, we should give them a pass. I could be wrong, but that's how it come across to me, okay? Abuse of power is a serious thing, all right? And Minister, let me ask you, if you're a sitting minister and you have an interview with someone who's before the courts, the government have before court, and you meet with them at your constituency office, not even your minister's office, would you consider it abuse of power?
I don't think that this happened, or this meeting took place when the court case was initiated. I think this happened as the minister at the time was trying to ascertain whether this should be moved forward as a police matter. I mean, I don't think when he met with her, this was during the campaign, and then after he became a minister, she came to him with information, and he moved it forward to Marvin Dames in his capacity as Minister of National Security, and then it was turned over to the police. So, I mean, I don't think there's, and you know, I don't think there's any intent to abuse power. I just think that you know, she came forward. They were like, okay, how do we navigate this? How do we get this before the right individuals? And as it relates to his awarding the contract, you know, every possible due diligence was done on that contract. There is no way, in his mind and in the mind of the cabinet, that that contract was awarded to, in essence, get her to say the right things. That contract was awarded. It went through the vetting process, the bidding process. It was extremely transparent. In our opinion, in the opinion of the FNM, is there was nothing untoward or underhanded going on where the minister was, here's the contract, say this about that person. That's absolutely untrue, unfounded, and ungrounded.
Minister, but also, the, if I may, Bushami, Minister Sands admitted that he did not get the approval of the PHA board. He also admitted that he did not get the approval of cabinet. And this is the thing, and it is very, isn't this merely coincidence that this contract was awarded just shy of the virtual complainant about to take the stand against the accused? Is it just that coincidence? Is it a mere coincidence? And this is what the general public and the opposition is taking a look at right now with this, that it seems to be an abuse of power and a perception of possibly bribery. And that is what many people are taking great umbrage right now on Dr. Sands and also Minister Marvin Dames' involvement in this case.
And what you also, something I'm not hearing is this. Sands, I think he said that he got advice from the office of the Attorney General. Okay?
Correct, yeah.
And if that is the case, now the Attorney General is in the same boat with
Is
the two
this
other ministers.
has this become now really a public relations nightmare now for the government as well?
Jerome, you want me to tell you why it's going to become an albatross around the government's neck when you have the Prime Minister traveling around the world indicating that he is going to stamp out crime and corruption. And this matter that is transpiring within his own cabinet, amongst his own colleagues, being involved in such a high-profile case, and admitting that on one particular matter, BTC phone records were altered, intentionally altered, to prove the contrary. So all of this stuff that is taking place right now, it speaks to the opposite of what the FNM came to power on in terms of stamping out crime and corruption and the perception of their two cabinet ministers involved in this matter.
I would also like to speak to the PLP's boycott of proceedings in Parliament. And when I speak Parliament, we talk House of Assembly and the Senate.
Yes.
The Attorney General, Carl Bethel, voiced concern that the PLP members are engaged in tactics to intimidate the government and prosecution services in the country.
It's interesting that the AG didn't see it that way when Desmond Bannister, who was the leader of the Senate in 2013, did the same thing when then leader of the opposition, Dr. Hubert Minnis, was suspended from the House of Assembly. And the Free National Movement also boycotted in support of Dr. Minnis, but they see it quite differently now. We are protesting in terms of two sitting cabinet ministers and member parliaments, excuse me, three.
Well, I think the boycott came about when there was arrests made of certain individuals in
directly out of
and I think the
Bahamian
and I think the Bahamian people are saying, come on. Obviously, this is a court case. There's evidence that has been brought forward. Let it play out in the court. Go and represent the people in Parliament. That's what they elected you to do. We ain't standing behind these 1 or 2 or 3 people out of Grand Bahama. Your job is to represent your constituency. Go into Parliament and do what you need to do. That's what you were meant to do.
Good point you just brought up there. Represent your constituency. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
So, go ahead.
You've had 2 I think it was, they were not even government ministers, Travis and who's the other guy?
Shipman.
They were representing their constituency and they got fired.
Oh, well, I mean, obviously, they were fired because they voted against the budget. The budget is the core.
Technically what you're saying is they're fired because they were representing the constituency, because that's what the constituents want.
The parliamentary rules stipulate that you must support the government on key legislation, especially the budget. So the budget is the fundamental piece of any government's agenda. If you are not supporting that, the Westminster system is quite clear.
Okay, so I do have a question. I have a question though in regards to this. Is it wise though for the PLP to be out of Parliament? As some have said, you've taken this position, but you may ask, is it semantics, or does it really make sense to be out of Parliament? If you are not in the House, let the courts. How are you going to get the people's work done?
I understand what you're saying. Like Obi said, the FNM did it when they were the opposition.
Does it make sense?
No, I'm just saying the FNM did it when they were in power. Now the PLP is doing it. When you look at it, I mean, the PLP is a small fry right now in Parliament, so small man, you have to do big things. You know what I mean? You have to do big things. Sometimes
so you would agree with this position that they've taken?
Jerome, just to add to your question, we're taking a stance that we're seeing that this government is taking a victor's justice approach in terms of going after their political opponents. And it seems like the three former members of Parliament, and then the individuals who are some are members of the Progressive Labour Party, but this man in Grand Bahama, it just seems to be somewhat of a witch hunt.
So I just want to be clear on this now. The police will initiate an investigation, which then the evidence is then turned over to Director of Public Prosecutions, correct?
This was a year-long investigation.
And you say this is the government that's going after these people, but in essence, this is a criminal matter that is initiated by the police first, and then to the judicial system.
First of all, let's clarify this: is the walkout due to the case in Freeport or the ministers? Because I support what you're doing with the ministers, but now with the case in Freeport,
but that's what initiated the walkout.
No. What it is primarily. Remember now, we had provided multiple press releases on the arrests of former members of Parliament of the Progressive Labour Party. This is all lumped together, okay, in terms of the matter with Mr. Smith, Mr. Dorset, and also Mr. Gibson. The culmination is what took place in Grand Bahama. And the parading of those individuals. What I found very interesting, Jerome, is that you have the majority of the individuals who are arrested in Grand Bahama. Doesn't Grand Bahama have their own magistrate court? Why do they have to be flown into Nassau to be put before the magistrate in Nassau? This is something that people were asking and say, well, if you have a similar matter that took place in your own island, you have a magistrate court there, that they are taken before the courts there.
That happens all the time. I mean, court cases, facilities, judges, the judicial system is centered here in Nassau, and it was felt at the time that this is where the capacity was to deal with a case such as this, and that's why it was brought to Nassau, and that's why it was processed here. And people complain that those individuals were afforded a lot of luxuries that other prisoners are not. They could hug their supporters. There were numerous complaints about all of that. So I think
that's why a lot of people feel that this seems to be very much a political witch hunt.
To his point, does it not? On the surface, it would seem as if we're just going after supporters and those who are loyal and involved with the PLP. On the surface, that's what it looks like.
And let's also remember too, I think her husband was transferred from Freeport to Nassau. I think he was transferred from Freeport to Nassau, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean,
so it seems, the optics of it seems as if it is politically motivated.
No,
it may not be.
No,
but it seems as if.
So let it go before the courts. Let the courts decide on the matter. Let the matter be opined on.
Now let's go back.
And you have a lot of evidence.
We've got to go to a break. Go ahead. You get the last point.
He's saying let the courts decide it so that he's in agreement with the court. The court has made a decision on the court has made a decision on the case. All right, and they were very strong with their words. Egregious. So when the court makes statements like that about sitting minister, exactly.
There's a court system.
Let me finish.
There's an appeal.
Let me finish. Yeah. You just said that you have the most respect for the court.
Yes.
So if the court makes a decision, right, about two sitting ministers and use of extremely harsh words, right, stop short of saying corruption. You don't think those ministers need to resign?
No. Let's go through the appeal process. They've appealed, and let it see where it is. I mean, that's how our legal system works.
Gentlemen, we are at the point of our first break, certainly having a fantastic discussion. We're going to take that quick break, come back with more on the record right after this.
Matt, where in the world is Matt Lauer? Where in the world is Ellison Greenslade? And so it's about the low value of cottage in Atlanta. So we can talk about it.
More on the record tonight, the government's purchase of the Grand Lukine is a hot subject in the news. We're going to...
Every time I'm in the Bahamas, I use Rev Go Play.
Got that food. It's packing. Here he comes.
Yo.
Wait, Omar coming?
Boy, this Rev Go Play, solid.
Rev, you and us together.
This portion of On the Record is brought to you by Generali Insurance Company Limited, your employee benefit specialist.
Welcome back. Our topic tonight, we thought you'd like to know. The party speak. My guests are Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honourable Dionisio D'Aguilar, National Vice Chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party, O.B. Roberts, and the candidate for the Deputy Leader's position of the Democratic National Alliance, Bushami Brister. Gentlemen, we're going to use this time to talk about a wide range of topics. Going to talk a little bit now about the economy. Government has projected it will collect $2.6 billion in revenue for this current budgetary period. The deficit for the first 6 months of the fiscal year, though lower than last year at this point, is already over by 2/3 of the total forecast for the year. The deficit shrank, though, by 33% year on year. The unemployment figure, however, jumped from 10 to 10.7%, more than 25,000 estimated to be without jobs. Mixed reviews on the economy. Obi, I'm going to start with you.
Jerome, what we've seen right now, we've seen, yes, reducing the deficit, but we haven't seen, as you alluded to, not an increase in the revenue. And unemployment is something that we had spoken about in opposition. And we also felt vindicated when we were the former government and we were talking about the amount of jobs that we created and the reduction of unemployment rate that went down significantly. By no stretch of the imagination that we would love to see more Bahamians out of work. We want to see more persons employed. And that was a very sad matter when we saw that the unemployment figures increased over the last year or so. And we are hoping that the government can come up with some initiatives that put more persons back to work. But since they came to office, we have seen many persons who have lost their jobs. Over 2,500 to 3,000 Bahamians and from the public service, and then other businesses that have been closing due to other circumstances, where there's an increase in taxes, an increase in electricity bill, persons unable to pay their general bills, utility bills. We're seeing many different scenarios of that matter right now. It is sluggish. Now, from the tourism standpoint, we have seen the tourism numbers increase, all right, due to the fact of Bahama, all right, and the foundation that was laid by the former administration.
Put a pin there. We can talk about tourism. I have that as a separate item. I'll give you that. But Bushami, people look at an economy based on what's important to them. What's in their pocket. I mean, you tell me the deficit is shrinking, you tell me all these other things are going great for them. But, you know, my neighbors may be out of a job, my family may be out of a job, I may be out of a job. I'm paying more in value-added tax. Everything has gone up. As Obi alluded to, electricity is still astronomical in many instances. You know, what does that, as an opposition force, how do you address those things?
Well, first of all, of course you're going to see a decrease in the deficit. If you see an increase in unemployment and a decrease in the deficit, it really doesn't make sense. But if you increase VAT by 60%, you have to. What else do you expect? You're taxing the hell out of the people. That's where the money's coming from. And that's why it's so tough in this country right now. I mean, you have people sleeping in cars in Freeport. Okay? So the people, we are paying for it in taxes. but nothing is coming in. Yes, tourism is up somewhat, like you said, to the good minister, and it's in part because of what the PLP did, but that's continuity. All right, one government take over, you finish off with the other government have. So I would not give him full credit because it was initiated by Big Brother, right? But if you increase taxes by 60%, the deficit should go down. If it don't go down, that's a major problem. Then you look and see what's happening in Haiti and Nassau. All right, we have to find work for the people. We have to find work.
How do you respond to these things?
Well, first of all, the unemployment rate. Let's address that. The number of people working in the Bahamas has increased by 10,000 since we came to office. Now, obviously, as people see the economy turning around, people who had given up under the PLP, looking for a job, are now saying, hey, you know what? Let me re-enter the workforce. But the number of Bahamians working today is 10,000 greater from May 2017 to December 2018. Look at the stats, number of people employed. The economy is, obviously it's a work in progress. We were coming off a PLP government that had deficit spend to an incredible level where we'd received 4 downgrades in 5 years. Okay, so we had to arrest this. We got downgrade after downgrade. We'd gone from an A status, A rating on our bonds, down to one rating was just above junk and one was just below junk. So the government had to arrest this massive deficit spending that they were doing. We had to. It was the fiscally responsible thing to do. And that's what we've done. We have right-sized the economy. Jobs are growing. Instead of growing it by creating public sector jobs, we are growing it by creating private sector jobs. That's the right way to grow. And then in terms of taxation, you can always draw specific examples of where people are hurting, but you've got to look at the numbers. We are overtaxed. Let's study that for 1 minute. Our tax revenue represented 16% of GDP. That's one of the lowest in the world. Okay, in the United Kingdom, it's 33% of GDP. In the United States, it's 20% or just over 20% of GDP. Even with the increase in VAT, and I agree, I don't like increasing taxes, but we cannot deficit spend to where we create a financial crisis. And when we increase VAT, our government revenue increased from 16% of GDP to 19% of GDP, still well below almost every country in this hemisphere. So we are being fiscally responsible. We're paying our bills. We are operating our country in a transparent, open way, and we introduced the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Now they can see every time what we're doing. We ain't gonna hide. There's no more where the VAT money gone. We can see that.
VAT money wasn't missing when you went into office. The first thing you said was the VAT money was accounted for.
Jerome,
no, it wasn't. No, it was just irresponsibly spent.
Jerome and Minister Diagla. First, let's correct this. Downgrades began under the last Hubert Ingraham government. There are 2 downgrades under the last Hubert Ingraham government that we inherited. Our economy did not go in a decline as of 2012. We inherited many challenges from the former F&M government.
As we did too.
Okay, now, in terms of the deficit, we increased borrowing based off of 2 hurricanes that we sustained massive damage to. 2015 with Hurricane Joaquin in the southern Bahamas, and then Hurricane Matthew in 2016. This is the reason why. Under the Progressive Labour Party, our deficit, our GFS deficit, was on a sharp decline, going down from after 550 million down to just almost over 100 million. But we had to borrow additional monies because we didn't qualify as a country when we needed to address our hurricane damages. What we experienced down in Long Island, Acklands, Crooked Island, in 2015, as I alluded to, and then also in Grand Bahama in 2016, also in North Abaco, and in certain parts of New Providence. This is the reason why we went through that.
Bushman?
Well, I mean, I heard your comment as it relates to VAT, and I remember just before the election, you saying yourself when the PLP was introducing VAT as a businessman, how much you're going to be paying in VAT and the problems that you had.
I supported VAT. I supported the introduction of VAT at 7.5%.
My phone is turned off, but I think we have the clip.
Yeah.
But nevertheless,
I mean,
there's so many other ways, okay, than taxing the people. I mean,
like what?
All right, let's look at real property tax. Yeah. How much money would we collect a year in real property tax? Which most persons do not.
For $2.6 billion that the government needs to run. property tax, I don't know the specific amount, but I'm sure
Roughly
it's
about over 500 million.
No. It's
Yes, sir.
absolutely
In real
rubbish.
property tax.
No, sir.
How much of that is collectible, though?
Well, that's another story. They would have to figure out how to collect. But I'm just saying, if if it was introduced, that would alleviate a lot of some of the
So
burden.
you need $2.6 billion to run this country. That's what
No,
you
I'm not
need.
saying you're going to get
where are you going to get the money from?
So
right? We were presented with a situation where we'd gotten downgrade after downgrade, deficit after deficit, bills piling up, not getting paid. So we had to address this issue of how to collect the money. So the first thing to do is we had to bring our deficit down. We just couldn't sustain it anymore. The bills were not being paid.
Did it have to go by 60%?
We felt that yes, we did. We had to bring it. Let's take the pain now. Let's get our books in order. And what we are now then saying is, as the years go on, we'll reduce duty. We're going to reduce the duties in the, if not the next year, the year after that. And there's going to be a shift. There's going to be a shift from import duties to value-added tax. Import duties restrict commerce, make it difficult to go into business. So that is where we are.
Let me ask you. First of all, import duties, of course, import duties are going to go away because you guys, you support WTO. So that has to happen. And guess what? After you remove the taxes of import duties, what are you going to do then? You're going to tax, I guarantee you, you're going to tax again. Tax the people again, the Bahamian people.
Look, you have to raise.
So don't make it sound like you're taking import duties away. You have to do it because you're signing on to WTO, and that is a part of signing on to the session to WTO.
You're in opposition, right? And what you need $2.6 billion to run this country.
I understand.
Okay, so where is the money going to come from?
Obi,
you tell me.
The question I want to ask Minister, answer yourself, Jerome. Under the former Progressive Liberal Party government, we had VAT at 7.5%. We did not have the benefit of 5,000 employees at Bahama because it wasn't open. But yet we taxed the people less. With an additional 5,000 in the workforce, then why increase VAT to 12%? Okay, and borrow additionally. Why?
I'm now considering income tax.
And this is what the Bahamian people are very concerned with. I want these questions to be answered.
All right, gentlemen, let's continue our discussion on the economy. Minister, you would have mentioned the downgrades. Now, the European Commission's decision to blacklist the Bahamas has been described by the Attorney General as unwarranted, prejudiced, and indefensible. The Bahamas was blacklisted by the Commission due to strategic deficiencies in the anti-money laundering and counterterrorism financial legislation. The opposition has blamed it on the government's incompetence, while others are encouraging the country to push back. We're talking about downgrades, but here you are now facing one yourself.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it seems as if the European Union keeps moving the goalposts. As soon as we fulfill the requirements to get past one hurdle, another organization comes along and says, okay, you need to institute new legislation, new regulations. And so we're keeping up. We're moving forward. We're targeting what their issues are. And we certainly don't agree with this recent what should I say, blacklisting, downgrading, or whatever it is, because even the United States, even the United Kingdom have complained that the basis upon which this was done was flawed. And we feel that we have consulted with the private sector, we've talked to the private sector. There was a meeting the other day where there were 70 members of the private sector in the room. What should we do? What should we fix? What should we change? The government is moving lockstep in tandem with the private sector in order to determine what it is we need to do to ensure that there are no future downgrades and to protect our second industry. This is very much an industry that's under attack by the developing nations, and we're trying to keep ahead of it. But it's just that there's so many entities and so many organizations that keep moving the goalposts that we're having to play catch up. And I think we are now to the point where, okay, we've done what we needed to do. We're passing all the legislation we need to do. And we're quite certain that any of the list that we are on, we will now start to come off. We've certainly fulfilled all of the requirements that they're asking.
The PLP calls it incompetent.
Because it's interesting, Jerome, that we see this. We see the Prime Minister flew off the Brussels on 2 other occasions to meet with underlings. Meet with underlings, not heads of states, but persons, underlings. That was one that we found very insulting to the position of the Prime Minister, a head of a country, head of state, CEO of our country, meeting with an underling and not someone on his level. And then when he came back and we noticed that we got blacklisted, we didn't get a response or an explanation from our country's prime minister on why we are blacklisted. Many Bahamians, one moment, Minister, many Bahamians want to know, if you went over that way and then you come back, please explain to us. You were elected in great mass numbers and great confidence by the Bahamian people. You carry the name the most right honorable. Please come back and explain to us, the Bahamian people, as the Prime Minister, to give us some confidence, but also give us some understanding on why we're being blacklisted to the Bahamian people.
The organization that he went to meet has not blacklisted the country, right? So there are many entities within the European Union, many...
and that was never explained to the Bahamian people.
And then on top of that, let me tell you something. When you're running a business or you're running a country, sometimes you have to go and see for yourself. Sometimes it's better. You hear messages, people say, you go there and say, let me see. Let me learn for myself. Let me speak to the individuals. Let me connect with them. Let me develop that personal relationship. That's what good leaders do, and that's what he did.
You get the last word before the break.
Do you consider his trip a failure then, since we came back and we
Absolutely not, because the entity that he went to meet has not downgraded the Bahamas.
Gentlemen, Bushman, you have the last word before we go to the break.
Now, one thing, like he said, the Prime Minister went on the trip, came back, we got blacklisted. So it's only left for us to assume.
He failed.
Right? Now, what I think one of the reasons are, possibly, is that we do not have corporate tax. Okay? We have monies leaving this country that are not taxed. When these guys come here and make millions and they go home, it is taxed in their country, you know. But we have no corporate tax here. So now, and the reason why they think we are corrupt is because if Bahamians...
Not corrupt.
No, I'm saying, well, whatever they say, it's corrupt.
Facilitating money laundering is not corrupt.
Right, fine. Yeah. But the point is, when a Bahamian deposits $5 million in a Swiss bank account, they don't have to make a report to the Bahamian government because we do not have corporate tax. If we introduce corporate tax, that's a way. That is a way to control money laundering. And I think, I could be wrong, I'm not a financial person, but I think that's probably one of the reasons.
Gentlemen, we're going to have to take the break in the show. Our show continues on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm here to tell you about the fastest way to purchase the vehicle you want right from home.
With SBT Japan, we import used cars from Japan straight to you.
Car ownership doesn't have to be hard. Go to sbtjapan.com and sign up for free. Search for the car you want, place your order, and make a payment using any one of our convenient payment options. Once you pay the duty and tax to our in-house broker, we will clear the vehicle and even deliver it straight to your home. Sounds too easy? Well, shouldn't it be?
Hi, my name is Mandisa. I'm an entertainer, singer, model, MUA. My experience with Alive has been very memorable to me. It has been something that I can trust on. It has been something that I can always depend on and count on at all times. I am what they call a corporate. I have the postpaid, and that's, I pay monthly and it's unlimited. Personally, Alive has helped me because anytime that I've needed to reach out to anyone, even helping a friend, someone who may not have minutes or their plan probably was up or anything, that I was always able to help. Business-wise, I've always kept in contact with anyone I need to professionally.
It's a unique opportunity for all of the parties to come together to debate the issues, the things that are important to you. It's all on the record tonight, and we thought you'd like to know. That's our topic. Our parties are here to speak tonight on the various issues. Gentlemen, in early February, the ITM Group announced a $130 million development in Grand Bahama to include the redevelopment of the Grand Lucayan Resort Complex and the transformation of the Grand Bahama Cruise Port into an adventure park, resulting in an estimated 2,500 direct jobs and some 18,000 indirect jobs. Minister, that was the news that the people of Grand Bahama, and I think the people of the Bahamas, had been hoping for. Can it happen? Will it happen?
Okay, so let's look at Grand Bahama. We obviously had a very a wonderful announcement. I think it was 2 weeks ago, where Carnival announced that they were building a new port in Grand Bahama. They were going to bring 1 million additional cruise passengers to the island of Grand Bahama. And this is, the Progressive Liberal Party tried and tried and tried and never seemed to be able to bring about the rebirth, the reinvigoration of Grand Bahama. And this is what the F&M is doing. So you've got that project. Obviously, we bought the Grand Lucayan. The PLP say, don't buy it. Look what happened to the Royal Oasis when the government didn't buy it. It's now a shell of its former self. So we bought the Grand Lucayan for $65 million to facilitate its onward sale to someone. We recognized that you couldn't just you just couldn't abandon this property. And Hutchinson Whampoa said, look, if you don't buy this, we're just going to shut it down and it will turn into the shell that the Royal Oasis turned into. There are a number of very interested buyers.
I think 60 is what
and there are a number of very good buyers. We are very confident that we're going to be able to sell this on to a purchaser and to bring about an investment and the creation of jobs in Grand Bahama. And obviously you've got the project at West End that is still a work in progress, but as we look at it, and the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister were in Grand Bahama opening up a corporate headquarters down there yesterday. The Commercial Enterprises Bill has started the tech hub in Grand Bahama. There are a number of companies that have come to Grand Bahama as a result of that legislation to create jobs. So we are making credible, measurable steps to bring about the rebirth of Grand Bahama, something that the Progressive Liberal Party tried and tried to do and could not do. So this is definitely a wonderful feather in our cap. We're very proud of it, and we expect, certainly by the end of our term, for Grand Bahama to take its position again. The government has always said, without a rebirth in Grand Bahama, the economy of the Bahamas cannot measurably grow.
Jerome, I beg to differ with the minister on this. With the matter with the cruise port, many persons do recall, on May 3rd, 2017, former Prime Minister Perry Christie signed a deal with Carnival, but it was in eastern Grand Bahama.
Which they said they couldn't do.
And which, with that, the delay that took us some time to sign that agreement was we got Hutchinson Whampoa to waive the exclusivity to permit such a port to be built in Grand Bahama. That exclusivity was given to them under a former F&M government led by Hubert Ingram. So it took us over 2 years to get them to waive that, and then finally that deal was able to be materialized and then signed off on. Now the matter with the Grand Lucayan, that is also an enigma to many Bahamian people in its entirety, that you choose to buy a hotel for $65 million. I never know, after sustaining hurricane damage, that the increase of a hotel went up rather than down. Then also how that deal was negotiated in terms of all of the contents and everything else was kept by Hutchinson Whampoa. We just bought the shell of it. The Bahamian people were told by the F&M governments that they bought that hotel to save 400 jobs. That now has changed. That now has changed. Now the persons now who are employed, they want to be paid out, and the negotiator on behalf of the government wants to pay them pittance and tell them take it or leave it. And now they are at a stalemate. We are waiting on the results of that. But the PLP, the former PLP government, were doing many major jobs down that way in Grand Bahama. And many people are aware, we also had potable water in eastern and western Grand Bahama. The work on the Fishing Hole Road, the seawall down that way, the beginning of a school, the construction of a school down in the western area of Grand Bahama. I remember these very, very well. You just had last year with Prime Minister went down and opened the fire station down that way. That began under the Progressive Liberal Party government as well. When you hear this nonsense that nothing took place under the former PLP government, was
unemployment
nonsense.
was at a record level. The economy wasn't growing. Even the Carnival deal, you notice how it was signed in May just before the general election? It brings into, why would they sign it just before a general election?
So it took us 2 years.
And when they got to office, they said, we don't want to go to East Grand Bahama. We were only doing that to placate them. We don't want to go there.
They signed the agreement,
and they moved to where they are now. That's where they wanted to be.
That's the minister knows better. Why sign a heads of agreement if you don't want to go to East Grand Bahama?
And then obviously we are on the Grand Lucayan. We are entered into negotiations now where companies are wanting to come in to redevelop, to create jobs. Obviously, the current format is not going to remain. They need to redevelop. So we are preparing and paving the way for this investment to happen, for these jobs to grow. Grand Bahama is on an upward trajectory. I mean, that's why we won 5 seats there. They were sick and tired of them. They just didn't trust them anymore.
I want to continue this discussion, but I want to bring something else into that as well. I mean, you look at what is proposed for Grand Bahama, and obviously, you know, the FNM has hung its out on this in many instances. But when you look at tourism arrivals have increased 16.5%, stopover numbers 1.3 million. Expedia reported a 32% increase in room night sales, 22% increase in gross hotel bookings. These are positives. As an opposition force now, how do you position your message against this?
Let me say this to you. First of all, because you're in opposition, does not mean you always have to oppose. All right? If something, like I commended you for your tourism rates when we were in the lobby, good job. All right? I don't have to oppose something that's good. Okay? Now, all of this that's being said about Grand Bahama, it sounds good. I hope, and I pray, because I'm a Bahamian at the end of the day, and I want those people back to work. All right? Carnival is a reputable company. All right? They take care of their investment. But my concern is if Carnival comes into Freeport, I think most likely what's going to happen is they're probably going to build their own facility in the area, and the persons will not come out into the wider community at this point. Maybe at a later point, but right now, where they're going to come? There's nowhere to go to right now. So Carnival is going to have to put some infrastructure like they've done on other ports. You understand? So I don't see that initially as being such a great boost for the Bahamian for workers. And on top of that, except the island here, Half Moon Key. If you go there, Carnival goes in there. On the land, you have most of the workers are Carnival workers. They're not Bahamians. The only Bahamians.
I was just there.
I was just there too
2 weeks ago. But anyway, go on. They bring people off.
Yeah, they bring people. Bahamian men. You have Bahamian young men on the boats to carry people back and forth. That's it.
And
you may have 1 or 2 custodians on the island, and a few persons. I'm not asking you. I've been there.
Me too.
Okay then. So then it's your word against my word. Okay. But I'm sure they've probably been there more than you. All right. But it was no great amount of jobs created because Carnival came there. And you have to understand, at the end of the day, Carnival has shareholders, and their obligations to their shareholders. So whatever they do, they're going to ensure that it's feasible and it's a profit for their shareholders. The government also have shareholders. You have shareholders. I'm a shareholder.
Let me say, the deal that we've struck with Carnival is that every shop, every restaurant is going to be run by Bahamians, owned and operated by Bahamians. And that is what we're going to be. We don't want them to come in, and they don't want to do that. So this is creating a lot of opportunities for Bahamians, and obviously the focus of their port is that people come in, get on buses, and go on excursions. This is why I'm challenging. This is why I'm challenging Bahamian entrepreneurs. Here's an opportunity. Create your excursion. Create your idea, because we are going to bring in 1 million additional more visitors to Grand Bahama. Okay. And obviously there's going to be and this will start, you can put your businesses, strategically start to buy property around this port, to have your businesses, to have your excursion business, to have your boat businesses. So this is going to...
I agree with that. And like you say, that is what you're proposing.
We're bringing the people in.
Yeah. But let's see it, because a lot of things that the government have said,
that's the point. Gentlemen, but I still, Minister, despite that good news, the controversial Oban deal is still on the table.
My lord.
Government submitting changes to the heads of agreement while also doing some due diligence now on the new president. A lot of Bahamians are still very anxious and are opposed to this project. It is still on the table.
Jerome, you know, the government, the opposition like to go on and on and on about Oban, right? And the Minister of Labor, the Honorable Dion Folks, is managing this matter, is seeing how and ensuring that what missteps we may have made are being corrected. We're not perfect people. We don't get it right all the time. Nobody ever does. And what we're doing is ensuring that whatever happens going forward, that the environment is protected, that the deal is good for the Bahamians, and we are, you know, it's slowed down for a reason. And we're going to make sure that this is absolutely right. The Bahamian people have expressed their displeasure. We're a government that stops. Okay, we'll correct it. We'll look at where we went wrong, and we'll bring about the corrections. I don't, you know, this is such a, this is an issue that the PLP like to go on and on and on about. You know,
is that a good enough answer for you?
Not in the least.
No.
Jerome, the minister said this is something that the PLP likes to bring up. The PLP didn't bring Oban here. And the PLP did not have a convicted criminal sit next to the Prime Minister and wrote someone else's name on the heads of agreement. This is not the PLP.
What happened? You mean the deal when they signed?
Yes, and that was almost
the Prime Minister was there.
He sat
and
next
the Minister of National Security.
No, the entire board was there. I mean, entire cabinet was there, Jerome.
Right.
Then, what is interesting, then we had a report in the newspaper. I heard Minister talking about in terms of safety to the environment. This President,
has the deal gone
the
forward?
EIA,
Has
the
the deal
EIA,
gone forward?
the environmental impact assessment has yet to be provided.
Has the deal gone forward?
Okay, has yet.
The deal is stopped.
Hold on,
Okay,
hold on. But Minister, it is interesting.
No,
it is interesting that you talk about an OBAN 2.0, but the files from OBAN 1 went missing. You had Paul Rowe, who's an anti-corruption officer, indicated that the OBAN files went missing. So what is this government referring to from this one if the one from last year went missing?
The OBAN is stopped.
And this is why Bahamian people are very
it's not
wary.
moving forward.
They're very wary. We would like to see this be abandoned, Minister.
Completely.
We have to be responsible in how we deal with this.
So you should have been responsible.
So going forward,
hold on, you said you have to be responsible.
We have to be responsible.
You have to be responsible how you deal with it. You should have been responsible before we entered the deal.
Absolutely.
What kind of vetting did you do? What kind of vetting did you do with these persons?
The government has admitted that they made some missteps. We admit that.
So
we made some missteps, and we are trying in the best possible way to ensure that if this deal is to go forward, that it is done properly, in conformity with the law, and everything.
You've got 30 seconds, and then we have to go to the break, please.
Mr. Diagla, the point that we like to know, right? First, you had so much suspicion in terms of who was the front person or the face of this. It went from Peter Krieger to Satal Duna to and all of this stuff that many Bahamian people still were left with question marks of this entire matter. And then when you had this same debacle that happened a year ago, Minister Diagla, if anyone goes into the bank and forges someone else's name, they go to jail. And nothing took place with Mr. Krieger.
There's no doubt that the government has stopped and is reviewing this project. Okay, so not going forward. So let's just wait until we work through the process.
Gentlemen, and with that, we have to take our final break in the show. We'll be back. Continue our discussion. You are watching On the Record. Our final segment is on the other side of this break. Hello and welcome to On the Record, a debate-style television talk show where Bahamians will find the balanced, true, and open debate they've been looking for.
And the icon goes to On the Record.
On the Record was born out of a desire to do something different. What we do every day helps our country, it helps our society, it helps to shape the views and opinions.
Listen, what is more dangerous?
Gentlemen, we've got to move very quickly. Let's wrap up. It's all On the Record. I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. Our discussion begins on the other side of this break. Welcome back. We thought you'd like to know the party speak is our topic tonight. My guests are Minister of Tourism and Aviation, the Honorable Dionisio de Aguilar, the National Vice Chairman of the Progressive Liberal Party, Obi Roberts, and the candidate for the Deputy Leader's position within the Democratic National Alliance, Bushimi Ambrister. In the Bahamas, they say it's never too early to talk about elections, and we never stop talking about politics. It's a constant cycle, and no matter how much time those of us in the press think that we have to take a vacation, you all keep us very busy. Bush and me, I'm going to really start this segment with you. The DNA, in effect, I think has already set its sights on the next election. I don't think you ever took your sights off of it,
No.
but you're about to go into a convention to change new leadership. You think you're still viable, given your showing in the last election?
Most definitely. I mean, the last election, I think we all know why it went the way it did.
Why?
Because the people that disenfranchised with Mr. Christie. That's the bottom line, okay? The next election, I don't think you're going to see the same results. We're having our convention tomorrow. We're putting our team together, and we're going to get on the ground from Monday. When I say get on the ground, we're going to start showing the Bahamian people, becoming an opposition, showing the Bahamian people that we can.
I have to ask, so what's going to be different this time around? I mean, you did well. Your first election was, I think, the high point. I think that's when you had the most support. It dwindled in the last election.
Well, like I said, it dwindled for the PLP. Got 4 seats. I mean, it dwindled for everybody. Like I said, I mean, that's the dynamics of it. You know what I mean?
Most votes ever in a general election a party ever got.
So
the FNM.
Exactly.
The most votes in the history of the country.
Yeah, but like I said, the people that disenfranchised, and now all political parties don't know that now. So I think definitely going into the next general election is going to be different, and DNA will be a viable force.
Obi, what is going to be different for the PLP this time?
Well, Jerome, you're seeing it right now. In the first 21, 22 months, we're seeing what? We have had 3 demonstrations that led to the House of Assembly. Many persons who took great umbrage with the increase of value-added tax and other matters in terms of increased electricity bill. The Bahamian people are now seeing what this FNM government is truly about. They deceived the Bahamian people that they thought the value-added tax monies was missing. You recall many of the so-called other government ministries, there were questions or doubt in terms of how monies were being spent and used. The matter with Bahama, remember they called that deal fake. Dr. Minnis, who was the leader of the opposition, didn't even attend the opening of Bahama when it was April 2017. But yet they want to celebrate with their major tourism numbers, but they don't want to give the opposition at the time, who was the government, the credit for opening up Bahama. And we're seeing the fruits of the labor in our tourism industry from the opening of Bahama. The PLP right now, we have began our process of rebranding and rebuilding. We have had our convention in October 2017, which we've seen elected Philip Brave Davis as our leader, Chester Cooper as our deputy leader, the Honorable Frederick Mitchell as our chairman, Robin Lyons as our deputy chairman, a list of new leadership individuals, vice chairmen. And we began the process of rebuilding. We have traveled the entire archipelago on a fact-finding mission, listening to the Bahamian people. When we win 4 seats and we lost many of our base constituencies, you really have to take a closer look in the mirror and see where we went wrong. And we had a disconnect with some of our people. And we have now re-engaged them in collaboration on how this FNM government has treated the Bahamian people in terms of the people's time. Well, the people are not feeling this government. We are not feeling the benefits of figuring in terms of free education, which many young people voted the FNM on. Free education, University of the Bahamas, that turned out to be a fallacy, Jerome, and many people felt duped and deceived by this FNM government.
Okay. Minister, you will get the last word on the show as we are out of time. There is no doubt that the support base, I mean, you look at it every day, there's no doubt that the FNM must be seeing the erosion of support since the election. When you talk about things like Oban and a few other missteps that have happened, that must be concerning.
At the end of the day, the reason why we won the most votes ever in an election in the Bahamas is because the PLP had the worst government in the history of the Bahamas. So you had the Christie-Davis administration. So what's changed over there? You've got Davis, who was the deputy, now the leader. You've got a lot of the same people, Fred Mitchell, still there. You've got the same people. How have they changed? Now, the FNM have come in. We're 21 months into our administration. Obviously, the decision will be made on whether to vote us back in again when we get to our 60th month, 5 years. We are fiscally responsible. We are transparent. We are growing the economy. Tourism is on a boom. They keep saying that You know, it's Bahama, which is a project that they started. I was on the board of Bahama. I was there. I saw what was going on. That was the brainchild of Sarkis Ismailian. And then they came in and interfered and delayed the project for 2 years. $2 billion to our GDP was lost while they interfered with it. And what is important to note is that the growth in tourism is not just limited to New Providence. It's in every island. Abaco is up by 18%. Eleuthera is up by 28%. San Salvador is up by 8%. So this country is growing. Yes, Bahama is there. I agree. But this growth in our economy is being felt throughout the length and breadth of this country. You don't hear any scandals. You don't hear any corruption deals. You don't hear any money on the take. Oh, you got to speak to this one. You got to speak to that one to get things done. This is a government working for the Bahamian people. We are focused on turning around this economy and creating opportunities and jobs. The private sector, not just hiring people by the state. That will never work. You will run yourself up on rocks. You will run out of money. And that is what we're trying to do, make an economy on a strong foundation. And I think we're doing an excellent job.
Gentlemen, with that, we have to say goodnight. I do want to thank you for coming on and having this discussion. I always enjoy these discussions because it gives people different viewpoints and it allows you to discuss, you know, amongst yourselves the issues that are important to people. And at the end of the day, I think, you know, those of us in the media, it is our job to present all sides and allow the Bahamian people to decide for themselves. So I thank you for coming on and giving us the opportunity to explore these issues. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming on. We hope that you have enjoyed our show tonight. Special thanks to our guests, Dionisio Diaguila, Obi Roberts, Bushmi and Brister, also my producer and technical staff. Once again, I'm your host, Jerome Sawyer. We'll see you next time.